So this afternoon, Billy decided to tackle a problem that we've been having with the Malibu ever since I put the 421 in it. We've been fighting a lean condition with the carburetor that consistently occurs right at the 8th mile or just before. If you run this car quarter mile, especially on nitrous, the air-fuel ratio tends to go extremely lean, and the faster the car goes, the worse the problem gets. I ended up hurting a piston on nitrous grudge racing at the Jack's Wax Street Madness event. And Jimmy Dale, well, he finished it off making some quarter-mile passes during a private test session at National Trail Raceway. This was Jimmy's first time ever making a quarter-mile hit.
Never made a quarter-mile pass in my entire life.
That was it?
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
I had to stay in it. Oh my God.
I've been using this Holley mechanical fuel pump with a lightweight push rod and the stock fuel lines out of the stock tank. The solution is this Aeromotive fuel tank with a built-in electric pump. Although this setup is intended for a fuel-injected engine, we plan on using a Snow Performance bypass return-style fuel pressure regulator to turn the pressure down to around 8 psi. I've got everything I need back at the shop except for a little bit of wire and some wire sheathing. So me and my 2 associates went down to Mark's to pick up some supplies so we can get this job done. Mark came through for me with the wire, but when it came time to come up with 20 foot of wire sheathing, well, that proved to be a little bit more difficult. And to add insult to injury, Mark seems to be having trouble with his printer, despite having a highly qualified printer technician on hand.
Many working printers because thing one's got them all tore apart.
So all my stuff's free today.
If we can't get them fixed, I don't know. It might be.
What'd you do, Tyler? Is it working?
No,
or are my
they're
parts
not
for
doing
free
nothing.
today?
Looks like it's working.
Hey, so my parts are free today.
It's invisible ink.
I'm gonna call
It's
Bucko.
there, you just can't see it.
I'm gonna call
no.
Bucko and send him straight down here.
Great.
He's only got 15 minutes to get here, so you better hurry.
So with 15 minutes left before quitting time, I left Mark's with all my supplies that I needed. So with a little bit of luck, we should be able to finish this project up this evening. Kenny and Billy ran all new -6 braided line for the pressure and the return. A brand new fuel pump relay was mounted underneath the hood and 10 gauge wire run from the relay back to the pump. Once we were finished up underneath the car, Billy pulled the fuel line off the carburetor and put it in a 1-gallon jug so we can flush the fuel system out before we put fuel to the carburetor from the new tank and the new fuel lines. Once we had the fuel system flushed out, the fuel line was hooked back up to the carburetor, and it was time to set the fuel pressure by adjusting the Snow Performance bypass return style regulator. We set the fuel pressure at 8 psi, and with only 7 gallons of fuel in the tank, you can't hear the electric pump running inside the car. Finally, it was time to take the car out for a test drive and see how it runs. I don't know if it's just because I haven't been in that thing and running it hard in a while, but I have never felt that thing pull that hard on motor. You ought to go drive that thing.
Yeah, it's had probably a fuel supply issue for a little while.
Dude, I stuck that thing in, like, I was in low from a roll, hit it, click second, and then click third. And I'm telling you, when it hit high gear, it felt like it was on a kit.
Yeah, I mean, usually by the time you get to the 8th and you're in high gear, it's starting to run out of fuel, so.
Well, I mean, I've never had a fuel pressure gauge where I could monitor it. I just watch the air fuel, but that doesn't necessarily, well, I mean, the air fuel always tends to go lean right at the 8th, and then from there on, it's borderline.
Yeah.
But man, that thing runs.
I'd like to see what it does in the quarter mile now. I think you're going to see that it's going to pick up about 3-4 mile an hour.
I don't know.
I mean, what did it go last time you had it run quarter? 124?
123 with me in it. Jimmy Dale went 126. He's
Yeah,
lighter.
It's probably going to go 128 now, I would say.
Tuesday morning, I got up and decided to do my civic duty, and I drove the Malibu up to our local polling place to cast my vote in today's special election. After that, it was time to hit the road and head up towards Uncle Bob's machine shop to take some parts up there to him for Addi's small block Chevy that Bob plans to fire up on the dyno this afternoon as soon as I get there. This new engine for Addi's Malibu is a stock block 400 small block Chevy with a scat crank and scat rods and a nice set of forged pistons. It's a relatively mild combination, one that should make right around 500 horsepower. This little stock block 400 is topped off with a brand new set of TrickFlow Super 23 230cc intake runner heads and a matching TrickFlow intake manifold with TrickFlow billet aluminum roller rocker arms and stud girdles. When I got to the shop, Bob already had the engine on the dyno. He just wanted to go through and run the valves real quick and degree in the timing pointer, which I brought up with me this morning. He used a dial indicator in the number 1 cylinder to bring it up on top dead center and index the timing pointer to exactly 0 on the harmonic balancer. Then it was time to fire the little small block up for the very first time. What do you think, Uncle Bob?
It sounds awesome.
It sounds really good. Sounds really good. I can't wait for her to hear it, and her parents.
Sounds really awesome.
Wait till we put it on E85, it's going to sound even better. After Bob and I put a couple heat cycles on that engine on the dyno, I got a text message from Billy asking me to come back to the shop as quickly as I could. He's got a little surprise waiting for me.
Welcome
Yes.
to Pimp My Ride.
Pimp my ride? What are you talking about? Billy's been working on my Nova all day today. Now, I've owned this car for almost 30 years. Vicky and I had found this car sitting in a barn in my hometown, and we drug it home. And with some help from friends, I brought this car back to life. Eventually, I began racing the car competitively, and the car was always deadly consistent. I won a lot of races with it.
You're the shiznit, Daddy.
I raced the car until about 2006, and then it sat quite a while until we got it back out for a short period of time to no prep race it. Powered by a stock block 421 small block Chevy with 2 kits of nitrous on it, the car won quite a few races that it really had no business being entered in. We always had to be extremely careful where we raced it to make sure there was plenty of shutdown because the car still had factory drum brakes all the way around. We parted out the drivetrain to build Tommy's S10 a few years ago, and the car has sat until just recently. I've never been able to afford to upgrade the suspension or the brakes, but thanks to some friends from Strange Engineering and both my boys, my old Nova's getting upgraded from the stock drums to a set of Strange Stainless Evolution 4-wheel disc brakes that bolt on to the factory spindles and also to the new 9-inch Ford rear end that we plan on installing in the car this afternoon. Holy smokes, look at these brakes.
I had to put the nice wheels on so we could see them.
What's wrong with my old Kraggers?
They're just hard to see the brakes.
These Stainless Evolution disc brake kits from Strange, featuring the new dynamic drive mounting system, will be available September 14th. Jimmy Dale calls these hot boy brakes.
Looks good.
Those are sick. I need some of these for my Malibu.
They're shit.
These new Strange brakes literally bolted right onto the stock spindles. No cutting, no torching, no drilling, and no tapping. Up next, it was time to remove my factory 12-bolt rear end in favor of this new Strange 9-inch housing loaded with 35 spline axles, an aluminum center section, and a 350 gear ratio. We also need to replace these worn-out 3-way adjustable Comp Engineering rear shocks with a new set of Viking dual adjustables. Once we had the new rear end housing up on the leaf springs, we quickly realized that my car still has the factory rubber leaf spring bushings in the front. That means we're going to have to take a little break and wait for Uncle Buckwheat to come down and give us a hand, getting these things dug out of the leaf springs and putting the new aluminum bushings in. The dogs have been cooped up in the house all day, barking and upset that they weren't outside helping. So it was time to let Chivy and June outside for a little ball therapy while we wait for Uncle Buckwheat to come down in his fire truck and help us dig these bushings out. Once Jeremy and Kenny got the aluminum bushings installed in the leaf springs, we got the disc brakes hung on the rear end and the cow tracks installed and called it a night. Today is the big day. Addie's finally going to get to hear her engine run, and I'm headed up to Bob's to help them dyno today and maybe do a little tuning on it. She's pretty excited, of course. You know, she's been waiting on this for quite a while. I told her yesterday, I said, hey, make sure you bring some E85 with you. Make sure it's fresh out of the pump. So she went yesterday and she pumped her first E85 out of the pump into her little fuel jugs. And so her and her mom are on her way up there right now. Her dad's got to work today, but we're going to meet Addie and her mom and Uncle Bob up at the machine shop, and we're going to dyno this little 406. I first met Addie down at A1 Auto Parts one day when I was down there talking to Mark, and they just so happened to drive past and see my Malibu sitting out in the parking lot. She came in and told me that she had found a Malibu for herself and asked if I'd come down and take a look at it and help her and her parents haul the car home. At the time, it was your typical old bracket car from back in the 90s that was desperately in need of some updates. The engine in the car had a cracked block that had been repaired, and the cylinder heads were way too small and outdated. So they contacted Uncle Bob for a little bit of help. So what do you think, kiddo? You pretty excited?
Yes.
I sent you a video of it running yesterday, but that's nothing like hearing it run on the dyno here in the shop.
I'm excited to hear it run.
Yeah, I am too. I'm excited to see what it makes today.
Yeah.
So we're going to run it on gas first, and once we make maybe a pull or two on gas, we're going to switch to E85. I brought your E85 carburetor up. I took it apart, made sure it's good, and I also brought my jet kits and everything I need in case we need to tune this carburetor to that engine. Bob kind of explained to Addie and her mom what to expect today, and then it was finally time to make our way into the dyno room. You ready, kid?
Yes.
All right. Sound good? On the very first pull with no tuning, the engine made 459 horsepower. So I broke out the timing light, put some timing in it, and got the engine ready to make another pull. The engine responded to the timing, making 490 horsepower on gas. But the gas carburetor seemed to be a little bit lean, so instead of tuning the gas carburetor, we decided it was time to go ahead and switch out for the E85 carburetor. All right, so it lost a little bit of horsepower with the E85 carburetor at spacer. However, you know, I already knew the carburetor probably wasn't going to be tuned perfect for this engine because I had it tuned for my 355. So it lost 40 horsepower. The 40 horsepower we just picked up with the timing on the gas carburetor. The gas carburetor was a little bit lean. Went ahead and swapped a fresh plug into the hottest cylinder, which is number 6, one of the hottest cylinders. But we're going to go ahead and put a plug in number 6 because the EGTs are showing hot. Now typically somebody would say, well, that probably means those cylinders are lean, but that's not necessarily the case. If the cylinders are rich, it will also show hot EGTs, especially if the timing's a little bit retarded, because you're burning the fuel in the header pipes, and of course the horsepower will be down. So we're going to put a fresh plug in number 6 cylinder. We're going to make a pull and see where our timing mark shows up on the plug and go from there. So I put 3 or 4 degrees of timing in it, and what I'm fighting here with this, what I'm noticing is when Bob revs it up to like 2,500, 2,800 RPM, the timing drops back from 35 to 32 degrees, and the harder you rev it, the more the timing drops back. So you really have to run a little bit more timing initially, so that when it's at RPM, the timing's where it needs to be. You can correct that with a crank trigger. That's why people use crank triggers, but I've never used one. You're not going to have one for right now. So we're just sneaking up on it. We're putting a little bit more timing in it, a little more timing, and we'll see what it does this time. But we should start getting a little bit closer to where we need to be. For some reason, the air-fuel ratio monitors on Bob's dyno tend to not want to work with E85. So I decided to pull her carburetor off and put a known ATM 950 on the engine and make another pull to see if the fuel curve looked any better on the plugs. All right, so it picked up a little bit of power with my 950 quick fuel, or not quick fuel, my 950 ATM carburetor, and I noticed that it put a little bit more fuel on the plug. So I think the little 750 was a little lean. So I went ahead and jetted it up 2 numbers all the way around. We're gonna make one more pull with Addi's 750 and see what it does. We finally hit the number I'm looking for, 1.25 horsepower per cubic inch, a very respectable number for the combination, especially given that it has a nitrous camshaft in it. What do you think, kiddo?
Sounds good.
You ready to take it home and put it in the car now?
Yeah.
Once we finished up at the dyno for the day, I hopped in the Malibu, turned the air conditioning on, and drove home, catching a little bit of rain about 5 miles from the house. Billy and the guys have been working on the Nova again today, and they've got the car set down on its wheels and tires. However, we're short a drive shaft. We had to have a new one made. But by Thursday afternoon, Billy had a new drive shaft in the car, and it was ready for its first test drive with the new 9-inch rear end and strange disc brakes. While Billy was taking the Nova out for its very first test drive, Kenny Powers was busy getting my dad's Silverado Chevy pickup truck cleaned up and ready for a little trip that Dad and Jeremy are taking this weekend to go pick up another John Deere tractor over in Indiana. I went up to the farm and picked Dad up in the Malibu and brought him back down so he could take his truck home with him.
You got to ride in the comfy race car.
All things considered, Dad's doing really well after Mom passed away. He took his truck back up to the farm to get it hooked to the trailer, and Jeremy's going to help him get ready to leave first thing in the morning. Meanwhile, in the shop, the kids have been working on swapping out a new converter from 501 Performance to hopefully get the Dart to run a little better.
Is this OSHA approved? Oh God.
While the kids are out in the shop working on that Dart, Vicki and I decided to take the Malibu, run it through the car wash, and go cruise around a little bit. This weekend is the Klingon Nationals. That's right, Mopar Nationals at National Trail Raceway just down the road from our house. So we decided to go cruise around the Malibu and see if we can pick off a couple easy targets. I ran into a couple Dodge Challengers, but unfortunately neither one of them seemed to be interested in any stoplight shenanigans. so Vicky and I decided just to go uptown and get a bite to eat for dinner, and then we'd go home and check on the kids. Are you making any progress on this Klingon machine?
Well, with a little babysitting from Billy, me and Allison were able to put the transmission and converter back in the car all by ourselves.
Really?
Very little supervision, so that's
Huh.
big. That's big for us.
That's awesome.
And
Only had to use the grinder 3 times.
that doesn't- you gotta cut that.
How you like the lift?
Oh, I love it. This
The
is
lift
first time
life-
I've ever changed oil with a lift.
Now look, that's
Oh,
not,
really?
Oh, this
It's
is
not-
luxury.
let's
It
not
is.
downplay Jeff's transmission lifter 5000. Okay?
Yeah.
That thing is great, but it doesn't beat the car lifter 9000.
I don't know. Ray picking up the transmission by himself is probably the most impressive.
Yeah.
So that leads us to our next segment. Where are we racing? Whew. Fearless leader. What are we doing? What's the move?
I think we're going to Cincy Street Nights and
Oh,
then
yeah?
we're going to Coonley on Saturday.
Oh, yeah?
The teams race.
Me and Allison are bracket racing Sunday at 42. with Jeff
Jeffa-fa-fa?
Buckeye stock, super stock.
Buckeyes, stock, super stock, shootout.
Nitro powered tricycles.
Wait, that's Terry's joke. That's
Oh,
trademark TM. That's Terry's joke.
oh my goodness. Well, that sounds like a good time, except for I don't have a roll cage and, well, let's just say that I'm outside the safety zone of,
Are you going to run your Malibu at Edgewater?
I might. You want to run it? Come on.
He's got to run.
Come
He's
on.
running the yellow Mustang. And
Come on. Talk to me.
I think you should run it this time.
I want you to run it because you're lighter. It goes faster with you in it.
Well, I might be running 13.0. I don't know.
Are you going to take that yellow Mustang?
I might. Yeah,
Is it
should-
fast enough to go that
It
fast?
should get there.
He's gonna win the class because he's a stick shift. Well, let's not go over our secrets, but
like they're not already out there. One Mississippi. Oh, there we go.
he's gonna win the class in a car that won't even run the index.
You're blind
Make
enough.
sure you bring your
He's a Klingon mechanic.
make sure you bring your jets though, because we might need to do some tuning
Jets?
for the yellow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can do that.
Mile an hour.
Yeah. Okay, so Dart, Malibu, yellow Mustang, Falcon.
There's no class for the Nova.
Right. So we've got 4 vehicles to get. Are you going to drive the Mustang down there?
No, so double open trailer.
Yeah.
Your Malibu can go in your nice trailer, and then Dart goes on, the
Suburban.
Suburban and open trailer.
Oh, okay,
and then
okay.
double open trailer, Falcon, and yellow Mustang.
Okay. So that's it. All right, I'm ready. Come on.
All right, over here.
Hurry. The reason I'm always rushing you
Hey,
is,
turn that fan off.
listen, the reason I'm always rushing you on this is
Yeah.
because when you drag it out at the end,
Yeah.
I run the risk of not being able to save the video to my phone, and therefore I can't upload it. So,
Hurry.
Chipmunk.
Okay. Tomorrow night, Cincy Street Nights.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Gates open at 3:30. Racing starts at like 7.
Yep.
And as you heard, we're bringing all the cars.
Yeah.
Saturday, we're going up to Thompson, Ohio, a track we've never been to before called Coonley. Okay.
Formerly known as Thompson.
Yes. And it's a 3-hour drive for us. So, anyway, gates open at 2, chip draws at 6, racing at 7, and bring cash, bring lawn chairs. This is going to be, what? Oh, sorry. This race starts at the quarter and goes into the finish. So it's not going to be at the front side. So bring your lawn chairs or blankets.
We're running
or
it the
whatever.
regular way, just not from the starting line. We're
Yeah.
starting at the 8th.
No, the quarter.
Oh. Are you sure about that?
Check the event page,
Ooh.
and I know the details.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that it?
They do have food trucks and stuff. So, like I said, bring cash, bring lawn chairs, it should be a good time.
Okay. And then if you're trying to buy some of this stuff at jackswax.com,
Oh, yes.
they're sold out right now, but they are making another batch.
Yes.
Evidently, we
We broke the
miscalculated.
internet.
We miscalculated how much of this stuff we were going to sell, and they
They
accidentally ran out.
They're thrilled with the reaction, and thank you everybody for your support.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
they're making a whole nother batch.
Right, just a little bit earlier than they had intended to do it. So,
I will have some with me at the event.
will you really?
Yep.
Okay.
So
All right. We'll see
We'll
you
see
guys. What? Cincy Street Nights tomorrow.
tomorrow,
Coonley, Thompson,
Saturday.
Ohio, Saturday.
yes.